Hi, everyone. I first of all wanted to say thank you very much for doing the observations. I know that the assignment part A was a little bit frustrating for several of you who were looking for more direction. But as you discovered through the introspection part of our rationale for asking you to do this particular assignment was to see what it is that you're actually noticing when you're conducting an observation, to notice the things that you're not seeing, and to think about the ways that you might have jumped to conclusions or jumped to assumptions without really fully thinking through how that might influence your conclusions. So I think that the exercise absolutely had value, and certainly the introspection process I think has the most value for all of you. There were a couple of things that I wanted to point out that I think all of you have mentioned in your posts when you've reflected on it, and that is the idea of we have to begin our research with a really strong focus on what our research question is. So I'll post a chapter for you this week that's not required reading, but if you choose to read it, you're welcome to it. It's a chapter that I wrote for a research book in my field, interpreting studies, that speaks to how to form a research question. So I'll make that available to you. So the idea that we have to start with a well-formed question, because everything that follows will be influenced by whether that question is well-formed. And for some of you, you had a sense of what your purpose was in doing the observation. And for others of you, I think maybe that was less clear to you. So having a well-researched question, putting some parameters, narrowing that research question down so that we then really hone the observation skills about the phenomena that we're interested in studying. I think several of you had really very rich descriptions of what you were viewing, and others of you had different descriptions, maybe not as rich. And so again, just the idea that whatever research we take, we have to really figure out how it is that we're going to manage our data. How will we best get the observations? And certainly in many of the studies that I do, I really rely on video cameras, because when I have to conduct an observation without a video camera, I know that I'm influenced with my own filters, even though we try as researchers to bracket our assumptions and we explicitly state those in qualitative research. There's still a filter that happens for each and every one of us. So no matter where we are, our past experiences with research, our past experience in that particular context will influence what we see. So I like the cameras, and I like multiple angles of cameras so that I can actually review and review and review, because it's not sometimes until my fourth or fifth pass through a data set that I'll realize that I've overlooked a couple of key pieces that seem to be coming up in everyone's participation. So it brings us to the question of one of the values of making a pilot study as one of the first steps of a larger research project, because a pilot study, after you've got a research question formed and a methodology chosen, can really help you to work out some of the bugs in terms of what it is that we're observing and looking for, and how do I code that in my observation. So one of the observations that for a study that I did of legal interpreting in the States last year is that my colleague and I obviously couldn't go in with video cameras, so it had to be two sets of eyes looking at the particular courtrooms that we were looking at. But prior to that, we'd honed our research questions, we'd been able to identify some parameters that we were particularly interested in, some coding ways to describe that, and I think some coding forms that help focus our observations so that they were useful. All of you have mentioned the temptation to overinterpret or perhaps apply some assumptions that are our own to our research participants. And so again, in the qualitative work that I do, we try and take as much as possible of our data and our interpretations back to our research participants so that they can verify whether in fact my interpretation is accurate or it's inaccurate, and they can help set me straight. So those second interviews and returning to the participants can be incredibly helpful. I think one of you commented on, are there unexpected benefits that come out of a research project that we didn't anticipate? Absolutely. Those serendipitous moments happen often in a research project. And I can give you an example from my own doctoral study where there were two interpreters working the particular trial. They were being videotaped from multiple angles. They were indeed aware that they were participating in a research project. But the serendipitous piece of research was about teamwork. And that team behaved very badly in the moment. And so we were able to capture on film probably what is a realistic practice between two colleagues that don't necessarily get along very well. And then how does that impact the deaf witness? How does that impact the actual court proceedings? So those serendipitous moments come to us when we least expect them, and they're sometimes gems in the research process. So I think that for many of you, you have found the learning and let go of the frustration and thought about ways that it applies to what Cresswell's been selling us and Hammersley and some of the other readings that you're doing. So again, well done. Thank you very much for doing that. And I look forward to your continued participation in the course. Thanks very much.